Welcome to your deep dive. Looks like we're taking a deep dive into some exciting new developments in environmental tech funding. You guys have sent over a ton of articles on the latest funding rounds for these companies, and let me tell you, things are really heating up.
Yeah, and what's really interesting to me is the variety we're seeing. This isn't just, your typical solar panels and wind farms anymore. This is next level stuff.
Right, it's like the future is being built right before our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of having a front row seat, a lot of these articles you sent are from Bearhug Recruiting, which is perfect
You're
because
right in the thick of it.
exactly. They're
Mm,
seeing these trends firsthand, so we know this isn't just hype. These are real companies attracting some serious investments.
absolutely.
So let's jump right into it. One company that caught my eye right away was Jacobi Robotics. Now, I know what you're thinking, more robots. Haven't we heard enough about robots?
Mm.
But this is different. They're not just building robots. They're using AI, specifically something called evolutionary computation, to make the programming of those robots way more efficient.
Which has huge implications when you think about
Oh, absolutely. I mean, more efficient programming, it means less wasted resources,
it.
faster development cycles. It's like they're making the entire robotics industry itself more sustainable, not just the robots.
Exactly. It's about the whole process.
And speaking of industries getting a sustainable shakeup, how about Halo Industries? They're using lasers, yes,
Mm.
lasers,
Yeah.
to make semiconductors more sustainable.
Lasers.
It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But it's a really clever solution to a huge problem.
It is because semiconductor manufacturing
It's a resource hog.
huge.
Huge. And Halo's tackling that head on with this really innovative approach.
Yeah, they're laser focused, pun intended, on making a real difference.
Okay, I see what you did there. What's cool is that they're targeting the chemical etching process, which traditionally uses some pretty nasty stuff. Lasers offer a much cleaner, more precise alternative.
Right, so it's not just about the end product being greener, it's about cleaning up the entire manufacturing process, which is often overlooked.
Yeah, it's like they're thinking about the entire life cycle. Okay, last one from me, and this one's a big one. Marathon Fusion.
Mhm.
They're in the fusion power game, which has always been kind of the holy grail of clean energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What makes them stand out in this funding roundup?
Well, fusion power has always had this challenge, right, with fuel, producing it cleanly and efficiently. What Marathon is doing is, they're focusing on that fuel processing, trying to come up with a new method that's, cleaner and more efficient. If they can, crack that code, it could be huge.
It's like they're building the foundation for a whole new energy future.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I find really fascinating about all these companies we've talked about, Jacobi, Halo, Marathon, is the different stages they're at. We've got companies just getting started with their seed funding, like their
Mhm.
first bit of outside investment. And then we have others like Marathon who are already scaling up with their Series B rounds.
Right, and that's significant.
It is. It shows real momentum. I mean, Series B funding means they've proven their concept, they're ready to grow, and investors are like, we're all in.
They're not just dipping their toes in the water
Or
anymore.
diving in head first.
It's really exciting to see that kind of confidence, from investors.
Yeah, and it's not just these big futuristic technologies either. I mean, this Bear Hug Roundup also highlights some companies that are tackling, more everyday challenges like Alvys. They're all about logistics,
Logistics, yeah.
which, it's easy to forget about the environmental impact of transportation and shipping, right? All those trucks, all those ships, the emissions, the wasted resources. Alvys is trying to, streamline that whole system.
It's like they're bringing the Internet of Things to the shipping world.
Right.
Tracking shipments in real time,
Yeah.
optimizing routes. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, they're making those everyday processes that we don't always think about that much more sustainable. And speaking of making everyday processes more efficient, there's Coast. They're making waves in the world of fuel and fleet management.
Fleet management, that's a big one.
Right. And Coast is interesting because they're focusing on fleets of vehicles, which are, let's face it, a huge source of emissions.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But they're not just about, saving companies money on gas. Although I'm sure their clients don't mind that part.
Right, a little extra cash, never hurt anybody.
Exactly. But their platform really helps companies track fuel consumption, identify areas where they can improve, and ultimately, reduce their carbon footprint. It's like,
It's like having a real-time dashboard for your environmental impact, right?
exactly. It's like they're giving companies that awareness so they can make more responsible choices.
Empowering them.
Yes. And it makes me think, we've been talking a lot about making industries more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
But what about the actual process of building these new technologies? Like, how do we make that more sustainable?
Right.
Well, that's where a company like Adaptive comes in.
Adaptive, yeah, they're tackling an interesting angle.
They are. They're focused on the construction industry.
Yeah.
They've got this financial automation platform.
Construction, yeah, another industry that could use a little or a lot of greening up.
For sure. And Adaptive's goal is to bring more transparency and efficiency to the financial side of construction projects, which
Which has a ripple effect.
it does. I mean, if you think about it, by tracking costs more effectively, they can minimize waste, right?
Right.
And optimize resource allocation.
Yeah.
It all ties in.
Less waste, more efficiency. It's a theme we're seeing a lot of in these funding announcements.
It really is. And speaking of recurring themes,
Yeah.
how about some love for renewable energy?
Always.
I mean, you can't have a conversation about environmental tech without talking about renewable energy, right?
It's the heart of it all.
It is. And Peak Energy with their sodium-ion battery systems. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're tackling a really important piece of the puzzle.
Aren't you good?
Energy storage.
Right. We all know solar and wind are great, but
They're not always there when you need them.
exactly. The sun isn't always shining, the wind isn't always blowing. So what we really need are efficient ways to store that energy, for when we need it. And that's where sodium-ion batteries come in.
They could be a real game changer.
Okay, so what makes them so promising?
Well, for starters, compared to lithium-ion batteries, they're cheaper to produce. They also have a longer lifespan, which is great. And maybe most importantly, they're not as reliant on those, rare earth minerals that often come with a whole host of environmental problems themselves.
Like they're solving multiple problems at once.
Exactly. More sustainable batteries, better for the planet. It's a win-win.
It really is a win-win.
Yeah.
And they're putting their money where their mouth is too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Peak Energy is building their first full-scale production facility for these sodium-ion batteries. And get this, right here in the U.S.
That's a big deal.
It's huge. It's like a huge vote of confidence, not just in the technology itself, but in this idea of, bringing clean energy manufacturing back home.
Yeah, it's a trend we're seeing more and more of, which is really encouraging.
It is. But it's not just about producing clean energy, is it? I mean, we also have to deal with all the, the carbon emissions that we're already generating.
Right, we've got to clean up the mess we've already made.
Exactly. And that's where a company like Earthshot Labs comes in. They're doing some really cool stuff in the world of, what they call it, carbon management.
Carbon management, yeah, they've got this really interesting platform.
Yeah. Tell me more about it.
Well, it's basically like a marketplace for carbon offsetting.
Okay, so like a one-stop shop for companies that want to, offset their carbon footprint.
Exactly. They connect those companies with, nature restoration projects, conservation efforts, things like that.
So it's like investing in a greener future.
Literally.
I like it.
Yeah.
And it's smart because, it creates this financial incentive for companies to actually do the right thing.
Yeah, it's not just about guilt anymore. It makes good business sense to invest in these projects.
Right. And inject some much needed funding into these, these critical conservation efforts, which is awesome.
It's a win-win for everybody, really, except maybe the polluters.
Right. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground here today. I mean, we've talked about AI robots, lasers, fusion power, even the financial side of construction, which I never thought I'd find so fascinating.
It's amazing what's happening when you really start digging into these different industries.
It is. And what's clear is that environmental tech, it's not just some, fringe movement anymore.
It's the future.
It's the future. And it's attracting serious investment across a huge range of industries. I mean, this is just a small taste of what's out there. What I find so exciting is that, these companies, these technologies, they're like the cutting edge. Who knows what incredible breakthroughs are just around the corner.
Exactly. And that's what's so inspiring about this whole field. The potential is limitless.
It really is. And for you, dear listener, we hope this deep dive has given you, a better understanding of not just the what of environmental tech, but the why. Why there's so much excitement, so much investment pouring into this space.
These companies are tackling some of the biggest challenges facing our planet.
And they're doing it with such creativity and innovation.
It's an exciting time to be paying attention.
It really is. And we hope this has sparked your own curiosity, to learn even more about the companies and the trends that pique your interest. So go out there, do your own deep dive, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one investing in the next big breakthrough.
Now that's a thought.
It is.